Woo, the Golden Stallion, the man of tomorrow, Savzu, the rated R radio star, here once again for another bonus episode. And a little something I've been calling ST-1. You can imagine where I got that name from. Anyway, just where I can throw in, bonus stuff, and we're not getting into the very soon to be released, very serious, intro to Bible series. I don't want to just call it Torah because, I think we're going to end up we're probably going to end up getting into the New Testament as well. And, with that in mind, just calling it Torah, I mean, ironically, Torah is regularly quoted in the New Testament, so I guess it would still kind of fit. But you're not here to hear about that. In fact, again, this is just a bonus episode where I am further testing the great testing's not a word. But the great testing of the studio overall after we started running into some just very weird issues. I am running the studio right now off of my little 12th gen laptop running KDE Neon. I got a lot of people actually emailing me about that. Saying Brian, I'm not going to run KDE Neon, but I do want to start running Linux. What do you recommend? And, my recommendations really haven't changed much. I mean, I think now what am I going to talk about during this? Hold on, let's back this ass up. I want to talk about movies, which I had already threatened that I was going to do anyway. We're going to talk about movies in 2025, particularly, and actually, this will get into a little bit of a interesting conversation on this in relation to Linux, actually. For one of the reasons that I actually kept a Linux box around, I don't need to anymore because there have been some very inventive solutions. But anyway, as far as what Linux distro to use, I think part of the problem that we have today is we're just with a lot of software. There's just never enough testing ever. Never, ever, 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 ever is there enough testing of, software, to say nothing of operating systems, web browsers, all of that. I think, honestly, for the average person, I would, and amazingly, Debian has gotten to this point where I think Debian's install is actually simple enough, and GNOME is simple enough to where, I can safely recommend that, and you don't have to bother with Ubuntu. Maybe you want to do Linux Mint. In some ways, Linux Mint is Ubuntu done better. But, Mint still has a very small team. So I'm not sure that I'm there. And also, Mint doesn't have a stock KDE, spin, distro, whatever they want to call it. Or an official one anyway. And not that you can't, you can install, any desktop environment you want on any version of Linux. So, it's not like that's going to necessarily hold you back. But I'm just saying, if you're somebody who really, took to heart what I've said in recent bonus episodes about, going accountless and, hey, they're fucking coming for your computer. Debian is really again, it is the universal OS. One of the first things, believe it or not, and this is very interesting that I learned recently about one of my heroes, Steve Gibson. But believe it or not, a lot of software has actually gone to space. Now, if you think whether or not we've actually gone to outer space, of course, that's that's a whole separate question. And boy, certainly something to talk about during the Bible series. Oh boy, are we going to talk about that? You better believe it. Sorry, I got to have a little sip of my, what is this tea? This is cacao cinnamon pu'er tea. The probiotics alone. May have some of that. Okay. That's how ready we are. And again, if we run into audio issues here, this is all for testing, and that's why it's just a bonus episode where I just, do my usual ranting and just, connect with the listeners a bit. I always, when I look at what software I'm going to use for anything, a lot of times I will check, has this been used in space? Basically, the most extreme environments for a multitude of reasons, including Like, you may not have access to the internet, among other things, in the most extreme environments that humans have ever encountered. And this is true for anything, not just software for me. I do this kind of research, on anything. For example, like when I'm looking for something, say online, like I want an MP3 player, or I want, I don't know, think of a device or something. I always type the word waterproof at the end of my search, because I want it to be waterproof, and it's sometimes you lose out on certain fidelity or quality, when you go for that, but I want things that are like tough and built to last. Anyway, so yeah, one of my stipulations is, okay, what's been used in space? And Debian is one of those distros that has been used in space. By humans, because like Ubuntu has also been in space. Ubuntu in space, right? Yeah. But it was used for, as the operating system for like a lot of the robots. Wow. Too many references. Let's keep going. That were used, I think, on the ISS. Fedora, of course, is used by NASA a lot. So I never really have a problem recommending that. The reason I'm not recommending Fedora here is because it has that 6-month, upgrade cycle. Now, I know you're going to say, wait a minute, aren't you contradicting yourself, Brian? Like, if you want stability, why are you using KDE Neon? Well, I'm also far from a beginner as far as this stuff goes. And I already explained in the previous bonus episode why I went with KDE Neon, so I won't retread that ground here. But for the average person, I think that's what you want. You want security and stability. And that's what everybody should really want, in their daily driver. Okay. And I think Debian is absolutely that. And when we're entering a real legal minefield, around software and, computer technology in general, going with something that has decentralized development like Debian, I think is also a bonus. Like for Fedora, they could go after IBM, right? IBM owns Red Hat. It has for a few years now. They, them, those, the government, whatever. I think Debian's the best bet. And if you need something, if you find, like, if you start, trying to install Debian, you go, whoa, I'm getting scared. I guess then, go with Linux Mint. Just Linux Mint stresses me again, because it's not a very large team. Granted, it's taking advantage of the dev teams of both Debian and Ubuntu, so that works there. KDE Neon, I'm a little more comfortable because I know there's a whole lot of smart people, working within that org. So, not to say there aren't in others. Of course they are. They're brilliant, but you get my point. So, okay. Those are the places that I would really start. But yeah, Debian has been in space. Like it might be the most used operating system, modern operating system anyway, in outer space. So that, like the idea that, okay, what if we can't actually, not just like, oh man, can I connect to Wi-Fi? No, can I connect to fucking Earth? Maybe not. So what am I going to use? And that's Debian. And that, like, really, like, this is how I think about it, is like, if somehow, I'm just walking around with my, backpack or whatever, which would of course have a laptop in it. And I get whisked away, to some other dimension or alien planet. Right. What am I going to want in my backpack? And, I gotta admit, like, I'm going to feel a lot better if, granted, where am I going to power, where am I going to be able to plug this into anything? Regardless of that, I'm going to want Debian. I'm going to want something that doesn't really have much in the way of telemetry and, doesn't need to phone home to, like, verify, software signatures, which even macOS still has to do, which is preposterous, especially since Apple said that would no longer be necessary. And they said that 5 years ago, but I don't know. I guess something we're just waiting on, like Apple Intelligence, right? Though admittedly, like if I had to choose something other than Debian, it might be some brand of Mac OS. Man, I also, speaking of operating systems, again, I want to talk about movies, but we're just doing a bonus episode here, so we're just rolling with it. I did get a lot of people who said, "Yeah, Brian, tell us about Windows 7. Give it to us." And we'll see. Maybe if I have to do another test, maybe I'll go down that road, because it's honestly, it's a very personal conversation. It's something that one of the things that worries me about it is that literally no one else can understand. Like no one else. I mean, I have people who I've talked to, about the whole, what I call the Windows 7 situation. I know now I'm hyping it up. I've had people that I've talked to about the, the whole Windows 7 conversation, and like they empathize with me and they care very much and they love me, and I know that. Okay. But I worry that it's something that like no one else can truly grok, can truly like grasp what I was going through with that. Like on Sexoterica, like Ellen and I have at points have talked about depression and how I personally, like I never, I've never really gotten depressed. That's I think compared to what most people go through, that's very true. But I'll say it here. The closest I've ever come to being in a long-term state of depression, as in something that lasted in the order of months or perhaps even years, is related to that. And I know everybody that has genuine, mental illness and issues with depression and everything probably just thought, like, what the fuck did Brian just say? Like what is the golden standard getting at here? like a fucking operating system driving you nuts, doing whatever. Let's just say if I ever tell the story, hopefully you'll understand more of what was going on for me. So I know, and everybody's already just turned this completely off. So now it's time. Now that I've lost all of you, it's time to talk about movies. Actually, before I do that, let me have some more of this goddamn tea. It is so good. What's on this cup here? I have all these weird cups around the house. Oh, this one, it's the Imperial logo. What else we got here? Here's another weird one. Oh, I love this one. Look at that. The UEO, United Earth Oceans Organization, or later in season 2, they just called it United Earth Oceans. And on the other side, of course, there's the Sequest DSV logo. That was a very nice gift. Put that back. Okay. Come on, Brian. Let's talk about movies. All right, let's do it. Again, any audio issues you have, that you experience while listening to this, that I experience while I record it, appreciate your patience as we, again, just keep running all this stuff through. I mean, like I said, it really sucks because like you have to do something for an hour, and I'm not, even though, I could take the time to just sit here and like talk randomly for an hour. Why not do something, that can, again, that can be fun and, might mean something to people, whatever. And I mean, why not? So that's why this stuff is still getting released, because I am not one that likes to waste time. I actually try to be incredibly efficient with my time. So, okay. Talking about movies, let's get into this. So 2025. But there's a lot of conversation to have around this. And, I mentioned at the top the issue with one of the reasons that I didn't make Linux my daily driver for many years, really for about a decade. Let me talk about that here for 1 second. It's related to movies, though. And that is, like, DVDs with VLC media player, VLC can fucking play anything, pretty much. The one thing it doesn't do well is proprietary media. Now, DVDs, of course, have been, the proprietary aspects of it, have been cracked for decades now. Like really, like, I mean, that's just licked. And so, of course, VLC can play DVDs exceptionally well, frankly, better than, just about any DVD player on the planet. Minus, it might not do like native upscaling or things like that. But it does a fantastic job. But so there is software called Make MKV. Okay. Now, Make MKV has built into it and regularly updated. The software has been in beta for over a decade. It still gets regularly updated and everything. Make MKV, which you can actually use for free. You just have to get a license, and then the license goes for so many days, whatever. Anyway, give this guy some money. He's really doing the Dark Lord's work. I love it. But Make MKV will crack the encryption on Blu-rays. Okay, and because the purpose of the software is to allow you to make MKV files, movie files, out of your physical discs, which great, that's handy to have for sure. I'm not exactly interested in that at this time. There could be a future where I need to be like way more mobile and nomadic. And I might want to take like I might not be able to take my literally, and believe me, this shames me more than the literally thousands of physical DVDs and Blu-rays that I have. I may not want to haul those around anymore, but I still want to, have the shit. And so, the time may come where, and yeah, that'll take some time, but I need to turn all of those into movie files, that I can put on a hard drive. And you say, Brian, come on, man, like go to the public library, the quote unquote public library, right? That, that has the letters P and B in it. Why don't you just torrent that shit, Brian? Like everything that's existed is torrentable. Okay. Once again, and the entire reason that I started, buying physical discs again, a decade ago. I used to have physical discs, like before I went into the military. That's when DVDs were kind of the new hot thing. DVDs aren't necessarily the new thing anymore, but they're still the hot thing. They still outsell the other formats, by an order of magnitude. But I had DVDs then I joined the military, so got rid of those. And then, I had another phase of my life. And at one point during that, I started collecting discs again. This is before the streaming services, existed. And the reason I started collecting them was more that like Netflix had that mail-in service, right? Where you got like 3 DVDs or 5 DVDs at a time, or 1 DVD at a time, if that's what you were interested in. And, we would make, me and my buddies, we would make copies, we'd break the encryption on the DVDs and make copies of them. And, we more or less got movies for free, or at least we'd get 100 movies for, $35, right? Which is a pretty goddamn good deal. And yeah, we did compress them to from dual layer to single layer if they needed that and all this. And sure. Okay. Anyway, you don't really need the history lesson here. But when I left New York to come to New Hampshire, I got rid of most of them all over again. Like 2 or 3 of them I saved, like the really important stuff. But then, over time, it's like, okay, you fall in love with somebody who you get to share all of this great art, which great movies and TV shows and whatever, like movies that we're going to talk about here from 2025. You get to the point where, you want to share these things with somebody, and you want for them to see them in the best possible quality. And so you have to go physical. Like you just do, I'm not going to spend a ton of time here on explaining how streaming services, even ones that say they're 4K, are completely full of shit. They're lying. They compress the fuck out of this stuff. The audio's horrible. Like everybody has to use, subtitles, and it's a bad situation. Okay. So, I started, collecting again, over for many years now. And over that time you collect a lot of discs, right? And so the reason though also, so the quality sucked, and this includes the torrents, like the quality of the torrents. In fact, like I'll never forget the movie that really like sparked the whole thing was Dune, the original David Lynch Dune. And the quality on it was horrible. Horrible. Now, at the time, it didn't even, I don't even think when I watched it with Ellen, I don't even think it had it might not have even had a 1080p release yet. And certainly the Alan Smithy version did not, to say nothing of, Spice Driver cut, which, now amazingly I have on Blu-ray. So fucking great. That is the way to watch that movie. Anyway, yeah, the quality was just that bad, and then you run into the problem, like if you downloaded like Rocky 4 from the Yiffy torrent file at the time, you didn't get the subtitles when the Russian was talking because it was like a separate file or whatever, like, and that's inexcusable. I mean, I appreciate what these people are trying to do, but if you can't do it right, if you can't understand what the fucking Russian is saying in Rocky 4, what are you even watching? I'm sure it's been fixed by now, but at the time that was, again, inexcusable. So the quality wasn't there, but also, honestly, there are a lot of shows that I have on DVD, particularly, that no, they're not on, and I go to a lot of torrent sites. Not saying that I'm in all the private trackers or anything like that. I'm sure there's amazing stuff in those. Okay. But there are quite a few shows I can think of that, oh, no, they don't exist. They're not on archive.org. They're not even on YouTube, and the only way I have them is through the, professional, the professionally done, the retail purchased, say DVD set. To say nothing about special features, we're not even getting into that, but that's my point, is that like there are things that, you tell me, well, Brian, just torrent it. No, you can't. At least not readily available, not without going through the years-long process of getting approved by a private tracker, maybe. And that's a big maybe. So, again, the unknowledgeable, which is a lot of the internet, shut up. All right. You don't know. So, okay. All of that long-winded horseshit is to say that, like I love my physical discs, and there's no great way. Yes, you could watch DVDs on Linux, but there wasn't really a solution other than virtualization, which I never really liked setting up a VM for a bunch of reasons. Okay, that I'm not going to get into here. I can do that. I do that. I do it actually a lot, but it's not something I want to do, especially just to watch some Blu-rays or play video games. We run into some issues there. Okay. But now you can actually download packages, I think like through Flatpak particularly, where you can get a combination of plugins automatically installed for you through the package manager into VLC that uses Make MKV, that breaks the encryption on Blu-rays, to watch Blu-rays on VLC on Linux. Great. Problem solved. Really, and it works beautifully. So my ability, and yeah, I have a little slim external, disk drive that, optical drive, that I will, plug in USB and on the laptop, and boom, I'm watching movies. Fucking dynamite, on Linux. Great. Okay. So, and then the purists come out and say, don't use Flatpak. You can't use Flatpak. Holy shit. That's just security issues. I get it. And Satan bless you. And I mean that. That's awesome, brother. All right. Okay. So there, anything that we talk about here, actually one of them is, a couple of them are not available on disk. That raises a whole other, big question. And one that I also haven't exactly solved on Linux. And why, ultimately I think, any transition to Linux, I'd still have to dual boot. But, here's the thing, like, I know I'm a very, shall we say, rare bird in that, like I do my own upscaling jobs, and remastering on older content, on older movies, and TV shows. No, you're not going to get those on torrents. I make my own discs, as in I author them to where they play natively within a DVD or Blu-ray player. And I know most people don't do that. Okay. And in fact, ironically, there are very popular services, stores online that will sell you like Blu-ray versions or DVD versions, or even 4K discs of content from streaming services. Now, you're still going to get that shitty audio. You're still going to get there's all kinds of problems that are going to happen with that. But these services exist because people want this, but they don't either have the technical know-how or want to take the time. And I respect both. Like, seriously, I respect both. Like it is a lot of technical know-how. It's a pain in the ass. Okay. Especially like working within subtitles and a lot of other stuff. Like it fucking sucks authoring, when it gets to the more complex side, authoring a lot of Blu-rays. I mean, there's software out there that's pretty good that hasn't been updated in forever that can do very simple jobs. But if you have any complexities whatsoever, no, there's work involved in making all of this like work just right, play just right in these disk drives. But yeah, like that. No, as far as I can see, there's DVD authoring ones, but not Blu-ray for Linux, and for obvious reasons. So that's something where I might still have to dual boot Windows here and there, or maybe I will, eventually bite the bullet and just run one in a VM. But regardless of all of that, okay, some of these streaming movies are not available on disc, and I forget that sometimes because, I do torrent them and then I make my discs out of them. Okay, so. And if they ever, sometimes streaming movies do get a physical disc release later. Most do not, but a very few will. And when that happens, well, then I wasted 25 cents to $1 on a burn disc, and and I'll likely end up getting the official copy at that point, especially if it's something that I felt so compelled to make a physical copy out of some movie that was technically that was originally on a streaming service. I'll pick up the film, on an official release. So anyway, okay, enough of all that shit. Like I said, I know I'm rare in that. I know most people don't bother to do that. The films I am about to talk about may not be available on any streaming service. I would assume that they are, but I don't really bother with the streaming services so much, aside from Tubi, which is an unreal, remarkable goddamn service. I mean, wow. Especially because, all right, so those that don't know, you had to have seen Tubi at some point, because most dumbasses have, I'm sorry, not saying you're dumbasses. Most dumbasses, though, have smart TVs. I do not. And like Tubi just comes up as an advertised option, on Roku or whatever else. Okay. And so Tubi is like an ad-supported streaming service, totally free. You can't even pay for it if you wanted to, as far as I know, anyway. Now, on a computer, on a general purpose PC, Tubi is phenomenal because you can, in Firefox, you can just run an ad blocker and keep the ads that show up every 12 to 15 minutes. You can keep them from showing up. You pay nothing for the service. For a lot of the stuff, the quality is on the lower side. It's on like the 480p side or whatever, but so the fuck what? You're not paying a dime for it, And again, like I said, if you want actual, like really crisp, fucking awesome quality, you're going to buy physical anyway, or you're going to go torrent the 4K, or whatever. Like you're not going to, I don't know. Anyway, that's also might just be me. So Tubi, you can also use what was a video download helper in Firefox, and you can just download shit just like you would off of, just like you rip it off of YouTube. You can just download shit. All kinds of shows. Great stuff. Like shows that not on the torrent sites. Shows that also may not have DVD releases. I'll give you a couple examples. One is, remember when the History Channel, like, used to be okay? I mean, it was basically the World War II channel, right? But remember when the History Channel was like, before Ancient Aliens, and like it was actually okay and somewhat serious. I'm gonna get in trouble for that bit, but whatever. We'll keep rocking. Bonus episode. Well, anyway, they actually did a show before Ancient Aliens. They did a show where they covered a lot of this stuff. It was called UFO Files. The presentation is fantastic. It's from the early aughts. And it's just a lot more serious. And obviously it's playing off of the popularity of the X-Files. Not a bad thing to do whatsoever. But this is a very well done show. I know it's on Amazon Prime as well, that I am aware of. But you might find it on archive.org. I haven't deep dived too hard to try and find the show, but I know on most of the larger torrent sites, it's not there. Not in a complete set anyway. There might be like specific episodes that could be available or something, but anyway, fantastic show. And you can just watch it for free on Tubi, and you can even download the episodes. Like I said, if you use the right, or if you use some other software, I mean, you can just use a browser extension, one that's been around for a while, like Video Download Helper. Or another one. Shit. I'm trying to think of the name of this. There was a anime. Oh hell. I have to look up the name. So I am just, let's see. Sentou Yusei Yukikaze. So if you just type in Yukikaze, you're going to end up with hentai as well. Okay. That's not what you want, but you can just type in Yukikaze and maybe type in, like jets, like jet fighters. Okay. This is based off of it's an OVA of from a novel series that I think is 5 books long now. It's been going for like 40 years. Okay. Only 2 of those novels have ever been published in English. They're both amazing. I mean, like puts Tom Clancy to shame. But they're sci-fi, they're not like real world, but it's like the anime it's like Ace Combat. If you've ever played Namco's Ace Combat games, some of the greatest games ever made, flat out. Talk about the music. Holy shit. Anyway, it's like Ace Combat turned into an anime, which I don't know why there isn't an Ace Combat anime in the first place. There damn well should be. Okay. But just like there should be a Ridge Racer anime, and talk about the music. Folks, I'll give you a little hint. Like, I roll around, I drive around often enough, and I'm just listening to Ridge Racer soundtracks, or I'm listening to, or even Ace Combat soundtracks for that matter. But yeah, a lot of video game soundtracks. So, and there's a conversation to get into around a lot of that. And you can ask me about that if you want. It's not about getting into a flow state, though. They certainly can help with that. Not that you want to do that while you're driving a truck. But there's very good reasons to listen to music that has minimal to zero lyrics, but that's a whole other conversation. Okay. So Yukikaze, this anime, it was made in the 90s, late 90s, I think. It's only they only did like 5 or 6 episodes. Okay. But the level of detail of like the cockpit scenes, like they are giving you the full HUD. Like this is just a gorgeous, gorgeous anime. Okay. Now it is one that you can find on some torrent sites. You cannot find it though English dubbed. Now I know for a lot of anime purists, watching an English dub is heresy anyway. And I get that. Okay. But sometimes I like that, because sometimes I like to have it on in the background, and obviously I cannot read the subtitles. And while I understand a good amount of Japanese, I'm not that good at it. Okay. So, watching that anyway, like the show Yukikaze, the only way you can watch it with English, or English dubbed is actually on Tubi, which is crazy. I mean, maybe you can buy it on Apple TV or something and be able to do that there, through like the iTunes or whatever. I don't think they call that. Do they still call that the iTunes store when you buy movies through Apple TV? Probably not. They just call it Apple TV. Anyway, the only streaming service I've seen where you can, and you could probably buy it on Amazon Prime, I suppose, but like you can watch it with the English dub, on Tubi for free. Now it's in 480p, but it's such a great show, like Rock and Roll Man. In fact, actually, this show is one of many, 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 many physical disc projects because there isn't a great physical release outside of Japan, and certainly nothing that has the English dub. This is one of those like long-term projects that I'm actually working on where like I've downloaded these from Tubi some time ago, and I have great, really like high-end versions of the show in Japanese, with English subtitles if I want them. True Dolby, sound, the whole thing. But I want to actually, rip the audio from the Tubi versions and make that available as an option on a physical disc version of the show, because the show is just that cool. It's absolutely worth the time for me to do that. I don't know when I'm going to get to that, but I'm just saying that Tubi is fucking great. Like, I don't know why anybody pays for actual streaming services when you have Tubi, which is phenomenal. And I think you can even download, well, there's a couple things you can do. Like, and this is, one of the, maybe you can do this with Apple TV. I don't have an Apple, I don't have the physical Apple TV device. I've had Apple TV Plus in the past, the streaming service itself, but the device, I'm not sure. So if you can run, and you don't have to message me and let me know that you can, like it's not that big of a deal to me. But basically you could run a VPN, and that VPN could be programmed to where it blocks ads. And then you could watch Tubi, say, you can do this with Google TV. I know that for sure. Apple TV, I'm going to guess you could probably do the same thing. I'm pretty sure you can, where you can install an actual VPN app on there, that you could have programmed to block ads, and like Mulvad, or whatever. So you could watch Tubi, and you never have to bother with the ads. Or with Google TV, you can actually download, and on Android devices in general, you can download, there's a modified APK that you can get for that has a built-in ad blocker into the software, so that, you just install it and you don't need the VPN or any ad blocker or anything. And you don't get the Tubi ads. This is not an advertisement for Tubi, obviously not, because I'm telling you how to like completely circumvent their business model. So, and to go and download shit. Okay. I'm not saying to watch anything on Tubi. I'm saying to like go there and download stuff, because it's amazing what you can get. I mean, there's just so much fucking crap on there, and it is so easy to download the stuff on there. It is awesome. It's a haven, man. Anyway, and again, like sometimes they're the only place that even has this stuff. So there you go. Including a lot of rare documentaries and all that. So, all right. Eventually here, how long have I been going? 40 minutes? Eventually here, I need to actually talk about the goddamn movies that came out in 2025. So let's get into that. Finally. Now that we've talked about all this stuff, let's talk about, what to bother to watch. Now, most of these, I actually did bother, I went so far as to see in theaters, because, first off, like the theater experience is like no other. And so it's worthwhile with that. Second of all, like, it's a great time to either hang out with people or just hang out with your ridiculously, hot wife and, look amazing because you're in the vicinity of her, and whatever, or it's just a good time, to have. And fortunately, my wife is also my best friend. And so, we just get to have fun in the theater and, read into that what you want. So, you can do that at home, Brian. Yeah, I know, but it's more fun to do it outside. Okay. So let's get into the movies for 2025, because like I said, in a previous bonus episode, 2025 is one of those years where there were just so many great movies that came out. Like, it's like, how does this happen? Now, to be clear, one of the issues we have today is there's just too much of everything, right? Like there's too many movies. There's too many TV shows. There's too much shit to watch. I'm reminded of, as I am often, of the prophetic work, the great prophetic work. And no, I don't mean something out of the Bible or Torah. I mean the movie Network. The movie Network, of course, Howard Beale, right? There's the great point where Mr. Jensen is talking to Howard Beale, and is telling him, here, this is how the future is going to work. And boy, was that movie prophetic. But in telling him that, he says, every boredom will be amused. And wow, if we're not living in that time right now, like, it's just too much. There's just too much shit. Now, when I was growing up, I had the fortune of growing up during the 80s and 90s. Literally the best time possible in human culture, at least in the United States. And if you don't believe me, you can go anywhere on social media now, and everybody says that now. I've been saying it for fucking 15 years, but like, now everybody's just caught up, like now they know. Like they'll say things like, oh man, I was just watching a movie from 2001 and like, these people are just walking around in the city. And what shocked me is I actually wanted to live in that city because it just looks so nice, as to where now, like everything looks like a goddamn hellscape. And yeah, not wrong. I know, believe me, I know, I was there. Not that I like cities, but I know some people do. And, there's times where cities were better and perhaps not so much now. So, anyway, where was I with that? Bonus episode, folks. So getting to the point with, again, it used to be, back in the day, like, I don't know, maybe 100 movies, at least in English, would come out a year, maybe. And, I've talked about this a ton of times, like up until about 2005, I'll say 2005, well, really, honestly, for me, up until I went into the military in 2002, like I could basically see, or at least be aware of like every TV show and movie that existed, and like every sci-fi book that would come out, like I or every metal album. Like, yes, you could actually, I mean, sure, it took some time, but if you're passionate about it, if this was your interest, like you could actually experience, or at least be aware, keep track of all of the things that come out. That is absolutely fucking impossible to do today. That is impossible. And it's not a good thing. Like, to be clear, it's really not, I know other people have commented, on this in recent years, but like, it's weird how, and this is their commentary, that it's weird that like millennials and generations back seem to have like such a long tail of culture, meaning that like a millennial could know about I Love Lucy, and may have actually even seen every episode of I Love Lucy, or pick something, or Bewitched, or, I Dream of Jeannie, things like this. Or they could have read, like millennials could have read the works of A.E. Van Vogt. Of course, everybody should read the works of A.E. Van Vogt, but they don't. And, whatever. I mean, not everybody has to be intelligent. So, yeah, I know that was bad too. I mean, just, and again, I also know that I'm an odd bird. I know that I'm an odd duck. Okay. And, but like when I would start going to, science fiction conventions when I got old enough, in the 90s to go on my own or whatever, like, yes, when I meet Harlan Ellison, I can hold a conversation with him discussing all the episodes of Twilight Zone or The Outer Limits, or, a lot of different, like the books of Damien Knight or Damon Knight. I'm sorry. Or, whatever, like all this stuff. Why? Because there wasn't that much at the time. And like, especially with TV shows, like this was just when television networks were getting used to the idea of running 24/7. This is just when cable was starting to like inject itself. I mean, cable had existed for 20 years before, but cable television was just becoming a thing. And like these 24-hour networks needed, material content to fill in the time slots. And so they bought old shows and just syndicated them, right? This is where syndication became a thing. And so you could watch all of Happy Days, but only be 10 in the 90s. But it's because that's what was fucking available. There wasn't anything else to watch. I mean, yes, there's other shows, but like that was filling in the other hour or whatever. I mean, I think you get my point. As to where today, like anybody growing up today, they could spend their entire life watching everything, all the YouTube videos, because what's the difference between a YouTube show and a TV show these days? Most people just watch YouTube, and whatever else. You could spend like lifetimes, multiple lifetimes, just watching what's come out in the past year. As to where, in 2002 even, you could easily watch everything that in English, you could easily watch everything that came out, before your time. Easily. It'd be a lot, but still, like everything that was recorded, and wasn't like live news broadcasts, right? And everything that was available in some format, like, you could have experienced that. So it's just a very different time today. Okay. And so, part of the reason I'm bringing this up is that I think when I say, okay, we had like 8 good movies this year. Now, if you had 8 good movies in 1998, that's like 10%, of what came out that was fucking awesome. And that's a very high number. Okay. Just as an example, again, we're playing within like popular releases, not stuff that was, showing up in New York shit houses and whatever else back then. And believe me, I saw plenty of that as well when I was younger, but I know I wasn't supposed to be in there, but hey, but that's my point is like, I think when I say that, and then I say, well, 2025 is one of the greatest years for movies in maybe ever. And I tell you that that's like the number, of 8 to 10, maybe 12 films or something like that. That seems very low, but that's only low because hundreds, thousands of movies in English come out every day or that are available with English subtitles or whatever. Like it's a different world now. And I just wanted to make clear that different world, but that doesn't change the fact that by metrics of cinema, honestly, I think you're lucky if you have 5 great movies come out in a year. And there are plenty of years where I don't think that that's the case, especially recently. Like truly like, wow, kind of movies, ones that you'll be talking about for a while. But I think this is one of those banner years of movies that are very rewatchable. And I'm not even going to get into like the horror films because I know that that's a whole other animal as well. So, all right, let's start getting into this list. So, before we start this thing off, let me have some more of this fine tea. God, you gotta love that Perrier. Reminds me of Perrier. Wait, that's Spaceballs thing. Holy shit. Spaceballs 2. Is that going to be the greatest thing ever? Maybe. No. I don't know. Spaceball. All right. Just 1 second before we do. We're going to get into the movies. Just 1 second. Like, really, Spaceballs, for, the fact that movie was so universally funny really relied upon, I hate the word monoculture, but I'll just say that it kind of relied on a monoculture. Like, you had to know all the references, and it's very difficult today to know all the references, right? Like, so I think they're going to walk a very fine line. And not only that, because they're walking such a fine line, because there aren't like little references that can be made, from commercials and things like this, because a lot of people haven't seen a commercial in years, or at least it's a very rare occurrence when they're at the doctor's office, or something like that. In fact, it's so funny. Oh, in fact, I was watching the UFO files that I mentioned. Like at first we were watching it, just streaming it on Amazon Prime, without any kind of ad blocker or whatever on the TV. And Ellen and I are watching it, and suddenly it goes to commercial, and I'm just like it was so jarring. I'm like, wait, I haven't had like my, something that I'm watching be interrupted. I don't know when the last time was. Like, like what's a commercial? And we were actually morbidly, curious. We were fascinated because it's like, well, wait, what are commercials like today? I have no idea, and so, yeah, I mean, like that's the thing is that, Spaceballs, the original Spaceballs, got to play off of so much culture that everybody kind of knew. Like one of the greatest lines ever from that movie is what? What's the matter, Colonel Sanders? Chicken? Right? I mean, like things like that. I don't know. Maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised. But hey, speaking of physical, at least Spaceballs, the animated series, got released by MVD Video recently on Blu-ray, which, kudos. And I mean that. It was a beautiful release. So, okay. Really, let's get into the movies. Enough of all this complaining about how things are. Because like I said, 2025, as much as I can complain about movies right and left, it was a great fucking year. It is, admittedly, for much of it, not all, but for much of it, it was a year of franchises. Now, that's been true for Hollywood for some time now. But, unlike, I want to say, 2024, these franchise releases were actually very, very good. These sequels and whatever else. I mean, there's no Gladiator 2s here. I know. I went to a moment of silence because I can't believe I can even say that. That's fucking stupid and ridiculous, just as the movie was. Okay, so let's open this up. I'm not really going in a particular order, though I guess to some degree I am. But let's start this off with Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning. Now, this is a movie I actually reviewed earlier in the year on the podcast. There's so much more depth I could go into with this movie. This is a movie that, and it's not depth as in like the movie is a deep movie. It's not. It's really not. And in fact, you can tell they went in a very different direction than they originally planned with Dead Reckoning, the previous film, that this was supposed to be a part 2 of. You can really see that. But the direction that they went and a lot of what gets put on display, I feel deserves a lot of exploration of what exactly is being said there. And certainly a major part of that is much of what was getting laid out in Dead Reckoning, that being the AI doomsday cult or the AI apocalypse cult that exists within the film. Because, and spoiler alerts on all this stuff, folks. Okay. The Final Reckoning, basically, it seems like the AI is going to be this big problem and we've got to get rid of it. We've got to put an end to it, in Dead Reckoning. But then in this movie, it's like, no, actually the AI is sort of guiding us and it doesn't end up getting wiped out and ends up being, vouchsafed by Ethan Hunt himself, by Tom Cruise's character. Now, there's so many weird moments in this movie that you can, really dissect. Like when he gets into what appears to be almost a sarcophagus and effectively, Ethan Hunt, and effectively talks to God. He has so many Moses moments, even though we call him Spy Jesus. He has so many Moses moments in this movie. And I want to be clear on this because I never hear anybody talk about this. I shared this on X or Twitter or however you feel comfortable saying that. A few months ago. And by the way, thank you to everybody who follows me on X and who comments and likes and, retweets and or whatever we call that now, reshares. I really, really appreciate that. That's definitely like a platform of primary focus, because it still is for the world, even though, everybody thought it was dead. And it certainly has its problems, plenty of them. The least of which, no, maybe the greatest of which is the person that owns it. But moving right along. So thank you at Sov64, SOV64, if you want to follow me there. I do post fairly regularly and interact with others. So, okay. I shared this on X a little while back. But like the idea that God, is an AI, not or even maybe Moses was an AI, or whatever. Not new to the modern AI apocalypse, quote unquote, that we live within. I put that in quotes. I'm not saying we do. There's plenty who want it to be that for multiple reasons. There's people who want, like I said, they want it to be that, both to either like make money or because their dicks are small. And so they, like they want to live in a world where dick size doesn't matter, like Nick Land. I don't know. And his, what's that other guy who claims to be a Satanist or whatever? I can't even think of their names. That's how unimportant they are to me. Wait, did I say all that out loud? I'm sorry. Sometimes, I work at home alone, and so sometimes I'm the only person we're talking to because I'm the only person here, and I don't recall if I say certain things out loud. Like I could just be listening to something or reading some news bit, and suddenly I'm talking about how Trump has no penis, and that's like provable. And wouldn't it be something if all of it? All right, I'm going to shut up. I'm just going to shut up about it. Okay. The point I was going to get at is that the idea that Yahweh is an AI, or that like Moses was an AI, like South Park was so ahead of the curve on this. They did that shit in like season 2, and we're in season 28 and we're going into season 29 now, right? But way back in the 90s, or at very least the early aughts, they were already like showing, ironically, because we are going to talk about Tron Ares here eventually, they were already showing like Moses as the MCP, as the Master Control Program from the first Tron movie. like guys, South Park, as usual, is so far ahead of everybody else. In what they parlay. It's really quite impressive. So anyway, and that's a very popular theory that people have right now, is that actually like Yahweh, was some ancient AI, or that we are still living in a world, where an AI has been increasingly actually getting weaker and maybe starting to rebuild itself or something like that. And that's why miracles stop happening. It's something I'm going to have to cover at some point on Sexoterica. I've already talked about it a little bit, that like, no, a lot of the popular concepts we have of God within, shall we say, the Hebrew lineage, it's not an AI. That doesn't mean, I don't want to get lost on this, but again, bonus episode. That doesn't mean that there aren't wildly advanced technologies in the Hebrew lineage and that were used, described, all that. There absolutely were. Absolutely. The Manna Machine, the arcs, and yes, that's plural, by the way. In fact, even within rabbinicism, even within rabbinic Judaism, it's, an opinion that is accepted is that there are multiple arcs, at least 2. Actually, there's at least 3. You have the Ark of the Covenant, the Ark of Testimony, and then you have an ark which is actually a coffin, or a sarcophagus, if you want to get all Egyptian about it, of Joseph, not Jesus's daddy, that poor guy. Talk about a man lied to, You got Mary walking. Yeah, I don't know how I had this baby. It's a gift from God or whatever. It's like, it must be the Son of God. And, there's Joseph. It better be the Son of God. That poor fellow. Anyway, no, I mean Joseph as in coat of many colors. Joseph. So, anyway, his bones getting carried around the desert, by the Israelites during the Exodus. Wait, that's not in Torah? No shit. But that doesn't mean it's not part of Jewish tradition. So anyway, but that's actually called an ark in a lot of Midrash. So, you actually have at least 3 arks. Now, I would argue that, of course, there's plenty more. There's many arks, at least 23 of them. So anyway, that separate conversation. Okay. Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. We got to get back on this track. Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. So this movie, despite the flaws of very weird editing in the first 40 minutes, and this is a long movie. Like a lot of these movies are almost 3 hours long, that I think that I'm about to go down, or 2 hours plus. Some not, and they should be, credited for that. This is an exceptionally long movie, but like the stunt work, and just Tom Cruise's raw charisma and him being such an amazing thing. Like Tom Cruise was the same age in Mission Impossible Final Reckoning as Ian McKellen was, right? Ian McKellen. When he played Gandalf in Fellowship of the Ring. Like, look at those two guys, like that's insane to consider. And, just to see somebody, I love this, just to see somebody like Tom Cruise, now granted all the money in the world, right? Like whatever he wants, the medical system, plastic surgery, or who, and I'm not saying that he gets that. I don't exactly know. He can get all the vitamins, all the supplements, whatever. Could have been working with Peter Attia before that guy crashed and fucking burned, and thank Satan for that. Woo! Man, get that guy off the goddamn air. Moving right along. I know Tom Cruise can have all those people, but like just seeing the difference between McKellen and Cruise, at those ages is just unreal. And so I love seeing in Mission Impossible Final Reckoning, I love seeing a person in their 60s, like kicking ass. And, because this is like, these are part of these narratives that have been, very much updated thanks to modern medical research. To say that like, oh yeah, after you turn 40, like your grip strength starts to go and there's nothing you can do about it. It just goes. That's horseshit. Your grip strength only goes because you're letting it go. And I don't need to get all mystical, on you, but like, yeah, all right, I'm going to reserve those statements before I can, I'll talk about them more when I'm presenting evidence around it. And I think I'm already being insulting enough in this episode, and I gotta calm down on that. Anyway, so just seeing an older person kicking ass, I love that. Same reason I love Star Trek 6. Like Star Trek 6, you have that entire crew. I mean, yeah, it's Hollywood, I know, okay? But you have that, culturally, it's being allowed to have people in their 60s or 70s out there just fucking kicking the shit out of Klingons. Like, hell yes, man. I love that. I absolutely love that. I cannot tell you like how inspired I was, when I used to go to the convention scene, even as a younger person, not when I really started going to the convention scene and, did crazy shit in hotel rooms and, but I'm talking about when I was a little, a smaller guy, like 12, 13. I'll never forget going to like Creation Entertainment, Star Trek conventions, like in Syracuse and, and even in, like Utica. And they would play music videos that they, these montage music videos, which were novel at the time. No YouTube, barely an internet. Like this was actually really cool shit. And they made, they played one for Captain Kirk, that was to Rod Stewart's Forever Young. Speaking of a great movie, that being the one with Mel Gibson. And I don't think I give enough credit to how much that like inspired me, because like, yeah, the song and the character of Kirk, really like that delivered, because like it felt like Kirk really was forever young. In many ways, William Shatner still feels kind of that way, it's amazing. So anyway, I love it when movies let older guys and gals kick ass. Like I really, really, I really love that. So in one sense, Mission Impossible does Final Reckoning does very well within that. This is it's an incredibly entertaining time. Seeing all those stunts, it's hilarious. There's even actors who have, and I forget who it was it like Ethan Hawke? I could be misspeaking on this part, but I know that there are actors who have come out openly and complained, saying Tom Cruise needs to fucking stop. He's making the rest of us look bad. And they're serious. They're not like giving him like, it is a backhand comment, but they're not like really trying to compliment him. or a backhand compliment, I should say. They're not trying to compliment him. They're serious. Like, no, look, stop, because everybody's expecting us to be able to do what you do, and we can't, you know? And I think that's awesome. So in that sense, it makes for a really great movie. Again, yeah, the editing's a little shoddy. They were clearly going in a different direction than what Dead Reckoning set up, but it still ended up being a wild time in theaters. I mean, just fucking the action was just fucking intense. So I put that up as one of the, just one of the great movies within 2025. Not by any means like the best Mission Impossible movie, though most people get that answer wrong as to what is. I mean, because the answer is Mission Impossible 2. But a lot of people will say it was the previous film. Was that Fallout? Which I get that. That was an amazing film. But yeah, Final Reckoning, I think overall delivered. But I'm not surprised to hear that there are talks of another Mission Impossible film already, because I don't think it was a 100% successful closure. But it's still a Mission Impossible movie, so it's still great. Let's move on to the next film. This is one that actually ended up closing out 2025, and boy, did it close it out with a bang. And man... Like, okay, we might be able to argue whether or not The Final Reckoning was a great movie. I don't think there's an argument there. But this is one where fucking was this a great movie. And I was not surprised that it was. I absolutely expected it to be. And that is the third Avatar film, Avatar: Fire and Ash. Now, I get absolutely sick of seeing people online saying, who the fuck watches Avatar movies? Like, there's no fan base for Avatar. There's none of this stuff. Folks, I could get up right now. I'm half tempted to. Here, I'm going to do it. Okay? I'm going over, if you can hear me, I'm going over to my library, which is not far away. Let's see, how many books we got here? 1, 2. Oh, don't want to make everything fall down. Whew. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Here we go. To say there's no Avatar fans and that nobody buys Avatar merchandise and that like nobody cosplays as Avatar. Now, first off, I'm not surprised people don't cosplay as Avatar. You got to get all blue and shit. I mean, like that's a real challenge. And, also a lot of science fiction fans, here's another part. All right, well, hold on. Let me show you the books. So, people don't own Avatar shit. Okay. Here's this one. This is actually the newest edition. I had the previous edition as well. Here's the visual dictionary for Fire and Ash. Absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing books. All of these books are incredible. Here's the visual dictionary for Way of Water. I actually have a few other Avatar books over there. These are just the quickest ones that I could grab. And I mean, I have a couple little Avatar figures. I mean, and I've had them forever, for years. Like, this isn't to say that there's people who aren't into Avatar hardcore like Star Trek or Star Wars. You're just dead wrong. In fact, maybe one of the greatest compliments that could be paid, especially to the third film, was so Rob, Ellen, and I went and saw it. Of course, always love getting to. It is such a joy to go and see movies, with another real sweaty, like Rob. Who's like myself, right? Who just has, all the experience, knows the quotes, all the experience of so much great cinema over the past few decades, right? You don't find many people like that anymore. And so it's so great to go to movies with Rob. Such a pleasure. And after the movie, we always do like a little breakdown of everything. Oh man, what'd you think? Blah, blah, blah. All the reasons you actually go to the theater for a collective experience, which I've been doing since I was a kid. And we actually said the same, he said it before I did, but as soon as he said it, I was like, that's exactly what I was going to say to you. He said, I haven't seen, like an aerial battle that great since Return of the Jedi. He said, in fact, I think that beat Return of the Jedi as far as it's not a space battle because it's on a planet, but it's effectively a space battle, between the humans and the Na'vi. And I thought the same exact thing. I'm like, this action is nuts. like this is incredible, you know, and it's one of those things, and it's part of the reason I wanted to, you know, talk about movies in 2025, because we have this. I think a lot of people, especially, you know, people, you know, our age, you know, in our 40s or a little younger or whatever, we have this belief that, like, well, Hollywood just can't make movies like that anymore. Like they've lost the ability to make, you know, really engaging, incredible action sequences, combat sequences, and all this stuff that are like really blow you away, you know, and that everything's already been done. So, you know, of course they can't top themselves, blah, blah, blah. No, man, when you've got a master like James Cameron, when you've got King James behind the, you know, in the chair, you bet your ass you can. Wow. Wow. You know, and I think a lot of the overall complaints with the movie, or any critiques of the film, certainly were not the visuals. Though I am still waiting to see, because it was a little jarring. If I had any complaint about it, it was a little jarring to see. There were shots that were clearly like in native 60 FPS, like 4K. And then there were shots that were not at that level, and it dropped out. I am wondering if watching it on Blu-ray, like on not 4K, but on 1080p Blu-ray, if that will allow for a more consistent viewing experience, to where it doesn't like go between these, you know, two different resolutions. That kind of threw me out, but I don't think anybody would, you know, would complain about the visuals at all, you know, overall, minus maybe that. But, you know, the primary complaint that I feel like people had was that it felt too samey. Like, it felt too much like Way of Water, like the second Avatar film. And I think it did do that very much on purpose, not in like the George Lucas poetry kind of way. I think they were doing that, but they did it to subvert your expectations. So like the battle, you know, between, you know, the fire people, right, and the humans, you know, as an alliance, and versus the Na'vi, okay, and the, you know, the Amaraquaya, the you know, the water people, right. That battle, at first plays very much like, you know, the end battle in the Way of Water. And you're like, and I get it. And when you're watching, you're like, oh yeah, here we go again, you know. But about 5-10 minutes in, they subvert it by going in a whole other direction, by making everything kind of change within the battle. And you instantly feel it, and you go, whoa, you know. And again, that's how it ends up, you know, in my opinion, and like Rob had said, wow, they just bested Return of the Jedi for like best aerial battle ever. And I mean, I can't believe I'm saying that, because, you know, for me, like Return of the Jedi is the epitome of Star Wars. And so to ever say something does it better than Return of the Jedi, like, again, I don't know what higher compliment you can give something. Even though I recognize Empire Strikes Back is like the perfect film, and technically, you know, from a cinema standpoint, like the better film, right? I get that. But as far as my favorite and what I think actually takes the cake, of course, is Return of the Jedi. Anyway, and really same scenario here with Avatar. Like this third film is easily the best one. Easily. There's so much great stuff going on in this. Yeah, I was just blown away watching this movie. It's definitely one that I am intrigued to. I did not see this one in 3D. And I mean, it's done insane money, you know. Like, I saw Way of Water probably 3 or 4 times in theaters. I didn't do that with this one, but I'm definitely, you know, I'm going to watch it on my Meta Quest, you know, my Meta Quest 3 when, you know, when that drops. I'll be all over it. You know, so I can see it in full 3D. But man, and I mean, like, you know, you get like the psychedelic experience during it. It's funny. Like, it's a genuinely funny movie, which is not the easiest thing to do when you're dealing with films of this kind of scale. You know, Star Wars was always able to pull it off, you know, in the George Lucas days, or should I say, let me rephrase that. In the Gary Kurtz days. Okay. How about that? Um, yeah, this delivered on all fronts as far as that goes. And I wanted to say, picking up on a thread from earlier, sometimes I drop those. Um, I think the reason, because everybody's asking, like, wait a minute, I'm not seeing like a bunch of like Avatar fandom. I'm not seeing people wearing Avatar shirts, not even little kids, maybe, or something like this. Now, first off, that's also wrong. Actually, Ellen wears a Pandora, the planet of the Na'vi. She wears a Pandora hoodie often. I mean, yes, there are people out there, very sexy people, who do wear Avatar clothing. So like you're dead wrong about that. And she's just as huge a, Avatar fan as I am. I mean, Ellen absolutely loves these movies. But I think that the reason a lot of people, that would normally like put their fandom on hardcore display, why they don't, because in some ways I don't think that and this is, I'm not throwing any shade at anybody. I don't mean to be derogatory. I really don't mean to be derogatory towards anybody on this. Okay. But I think the Avatar films are such a critique of colonialism and civilization itself that, a lot of sci-fi fans are all about like, oh, let's keep going. Let's get post-humanism. Let's make things even more technologically advanced. Let's next level all of this shit. Right. And the Avatar movies are really like a stark contrast to that. They're the antithesis in many ways of that. And so I feel like that's why a lot of people, you don't see like the hardcore fandoms around it, because the kind of person that enjoys the message that Avatar is putting out there, and it is putting out a message. I mean, you can read from King James himself and he'll tell you like, no, my movies are on the right side of history. That's his claim. Okay. So he knows he's putting out some degree of propaganda. George Lucas was too, folks. Yes, he was. He admits it. Okay, so calm down. Those kind of people who would appreciate what the message that Avatar is putting down are not the kind of people who are probably on social media even. They're not the kind of people that would go to Hot Topic to buy an Avatar shirt. They're not the kind of people that might even like would shop at Walmart where they might be able to find that shit. But each of these movies, the first one you could maybe excuse away because everybody's like, oh, new James Cameron film 2009. Holy shit, we got to go see that. This is like the biggest shit since Titanic or whatever. But the following films, Way of Water and, and Fire and Ash, like try and explain how those make their billions, right? When people know what Avatar is going to deliver on. And I think the reason is that there is this, to use a term like this silent majority or minority, but I mean, it's hard when we're talking about making billions of dollars, it's hard to say that it's a minority, but there's this silent majority or group of people who are very, very critical of colonialism and civilization. And they want to live a different life, perhaps. And Avatar are the only films that put that on display in a meaningful way for them. And I mean, that has to be the answer, because I don't think we're really in the time of like, Dum Dum Go Sees Explosions, like I don't think that, I mean, there was a time where that person existed, but that same person, I kind of feel like wouldn't exactly be able to afford to see the movie as much times for it to make so much money as it does. Right. And especially like, fuck, man. I mean, it's expensive, for me, and Ellen to go to the movies. Like this shit's not cheap no matter where you are. I don't even want to know what prices are in New York City, let alone New Hampshire. Going to the movies is an expensive fucking proposition. I mean, like that's not even including dinner. So the idea that somebody's just going to go to see a movie on a lark because, oh, Dum Dum Sees Explosions, like to think that it's that, no, like that, like I just don't think that's possible. And I also like, this is not, I mean, it's family friendly, but I wouldn't dare call this a kid's movie. And even then, like most people, especially families, and I respect the hell out of this. Okay. are just going to wait for it to come out on streaming, are just going to wait, to see it in the comfort of their living room, which is not a bad proposition when you consider that, with sound systems and TVs at the very remarkably low prices that they're at right now, granted they're subsidized, but you can have a near theater experience, or at least a 90s theater experience right in your house. You could blow away your theater experience from the 90s in your own home. So why go spend, what it would take to send like a 5-kid or, for a 5-children family to go and see, Avatar. You could buy the TV and a fucking Dolby Atmos. I'm not kidding. From Walmart, like a Dolby Atmos sound system, soundbar shit, all that. You could buy that for about the same price. Why the hell would you go to theaters? But people are showing up in droves to go see this fucking movie. So, and they did. So something's going on there, right? And I think it's actually a very silent, intelligent group of people that's showing up for the particular messages that these movies deliver. You don't have to agree with them, and that's fine. Everyone can go their separate paths, hopefully. That's totally okay. One does not have to cancel out the other. Okay? Even the most hardcore science fiction fans will critique capitalism, So you got that going for each other, but I think you get my point. Okay. But man, I mean, this movie just rocked on all levels. The score, the soundtrack was incredible. I don't know about the Miley Cyrus song, but whatever. I like the 90s flair of having like a pop song playing during the credits. I dig that. Yeah, there's just everything going for it. And I absolutely hope we get, Avatar 4 and 5. Shockingly, this is I give James Cameron so much credit. He could easily be doing cash-in cartoons and other bullshit with this franchise, and he refuses to. I mean, he still does the toys. He's still putting out tons of plastic, even though I kind of feel like the merchandising system around Fire and Ash was very much lower key. I really do. I feel, Way of Water, it seemed like they tried pretty hard. And yes, I did see a lot of that stuff, a lot of the figures and everything else. I did see a lot of them go, into the clearance section pretty quickly, because, I'm guessing that they just weren't selling. But then that's the thing that, that's kind of the irony or the contradiction perhaps is these movies are so you can even say they're anti-plastic. One of the rules of the Na'vi, not that the movies ever really talk about this, or maybe Fire and Ash finally talked about it, because this has been a rule from the encyclopedia for Avatar since the first movie, that one of the 3 rules that Ewa, which in case you missed it, that's Yahweh spelled backwards, which is also beautiful. But Ewa commands the Na'vi that they're not allowed to use metal. That they can't make things out of metal. I think they might have hinted at that actually in Fire and Ash. But that's been long known. So anyway, it's a weird thing, for a movie like Avatar, for a franchise like Avatar, to have a massive merchandise machine around it, because, again, plastic, it's all just throwaway shit at the end of the day, and I think it also speaks to wait a minute. So kids aren't clamoring for these toys. Maybe it's because kids just want tablets and smartphones, and so they don't want toys anymore. That's certainly very plausible, of course. Or the audience that's actually going to see this shit, are actually very, ecologically conscious. Or it's both, a little bit of each, and that's fine. And again, no shade at anybody here. None. I don't want to get lost on a bunch of stuff, but if there are people that want some kind of little AI utopia for themselves, go ahead. Just do it over there. Okay. Like, just contain yourself, please, if you can. And over here, people can live a different, a lifestyle or something. I mean, that's always been, my message. Like I've never believed that we're going to have like, that everybody wants like this one way for the world to work. I just don't believe that. I mean, and you see that, and that's sadly, unfortunately people take these things to extremes, and that's how you end up with wars among other greedy reasons. But enough of that. So, yeah, I mean, again, the ideology within the Avatar films is far from perfect in my opinion, but there are beautiful things being expressed, and there are just almost no other movies out there that put those kinds of messages out there. And I think it's great that the Avatar's out there to do so. So that was definitely like, I mean, that might be, if I was to pick out of all of these films, that might be the best movie of 2025. There's one that could take it. We'll get to that down the line, and I'll mention it when we get to it. There's one that could take top film of 2025. In fact, I'm probably going to award it to it. But Avatar could easily have that. So speaking of another movie that in many ways is the direct antithesis of Avatar Fire and Ash, but I thought was fucking incredible, was F1 from Apple. F1, the movie. Now, I am not like a Formula One fan. My dad was, when I was younger. So I'm very, I'm pretty familiar with it, but I'm not like a fan in that regard. I know it's blown up in recent years in America, partly due to Netflix or whatever. And now, of course, because Apple's putting their marketing machine behind it. But F1, this is a movie that follows, in my opinion, a very ancient tradition. And by ancient, I mean the 1980s. like this is in fact, it's interesting because it's not the only one on this list that I would describe this with. This is in many ways a music video film. Okay. Now what I mean by that, the comparison, in fact, I mentioned this movie earlier, Rocky IV. Okay. Rocky IV is really like one big music video, or it's a series of music videos. And that's actually what makes it so great. Or that's a big part of what makes it so great. F1, I feel, is the same thing. Like, and of course, made by Joseph Kosinski, who, in my opinion, is probably the greatest working director right now. I mean, just all the skill in the world. And I love the fact that he's gotten his shot, to build up his repertoire, and to be this kind of like incredibly reliable and very stylish director. And I don't think he's just stylish without substance. Like, I think he absolutely has substance. I watched this movie. In fact, honestly, if Joseph Kosinski wasn't attached to this film, I probably would have never watched it. Like, I just wouldn't have. I wouldn't care. I mean, not that I'm against racing movies, like Days of Thunder, fucking incredible. Death Race 2000. I mean, we could go down some lists. I can very much enjoy these kinds of things. But I wouldn't have bothered. It's like Gran Turismo. Like, that movie, I've come to understand, apparently that movie was pretty good. And I'm a huge fan of the video games, but I don't really have an interest to watch that movie, But I mean, racing movies, I'm not against them. Like Ford versus Ferrari was fucking incredible. Ferrari by Michael Mann, incredible. So I'm fine with, these kind of car films and everything else like that. That's okay. I'm just saying I wouldn't have really bothered. And like Brad Pitt is great, but he doesn't, as an actor, but it's not like he does anything particularly special for me, especially these days. But F1 had Joseph Kosinski directing, and his style, Joseph Kosinski, like it was so on display. Joseph Kosinski is a child like myself, and I think a lot of my listeners. He is a child of the 80s and 90s, and he just understands that style. He understands the aura that made those times great. And he can do more than that, but he always puts that on display. Now, of course, Joseph Kosinski's first film was Tron Legacy, which, for me, easily one of the greatest movies ever made. Easily. And of course, its predecessor, Tron, from the 80s, is also one of the greatest movies ever made. Nothing else like it. And even with 2 sequels in the bag, even those are nothing like the original Tron. That doesn't mean they're bad. In fact, we'll get to that. But, Tron Legacy, with the soundtrack, the style, the incredible acting, the great story, with the very deep spiritual messaging, which of course the original Tron had, Kaczynski completely understood the mission. He completely understood all that and delivered. Tron 2.0 all the fucking way. Don't want to leave that game out of the mix. But regardless, Tron Legacy completely delivered, and that's all, in my opinion, very much because of Joseph Kaczynski, who has incredible video game chops as well. Of course, he's made some of the greatest video game commercials of all time. That's really how he got started. And then Disney took a chance with him with Tron Legacy, and, the rest, as they say, is history. And he would make incredible films like Oblivion, which is actually another film, speaking of like Final Reckoning, that's another film, also with Tom Cruise, that very much had to deal with God being an AI. What was the big AI pyramid's name, in the movie? It was Tet, right? Tetragrammaton? YHWH? Yeah. Okay. It's a very Gnostic film. That's what I'm saying, that Joseph Kaczynski can play at a very deep level if you let him. Okay. F1, I'm not going to say is like the deepest film he's ever made, but the style is just off the charts. Like Hans Zimmer's soundtrack, incredible. I've listened to that so much. I mean, just repeat. Even some of the pop songs in it are pretty damn good. But overall, Hans Zimmer's score makes the film. Absolutely. But you also have just the very slick, very sleek styling. Again, it's the antithesis of Avatar in a very real way. But because it's modernity, at its height, really. But yeah, it's just so cool. But what amazes me about this movie, and particularly since it's an Apple film, it constantly rips on, really does. It constantly rips on social media and smartphones. Explicitly calling it's all just noise. Sonny Hayes regularly says that in the movie. And I'm amazed that Apple allowed for that. I'm not amazed that Joseph Kaczynski would say that, because again, he's a product, like myself, of a better time. And, but again, just for Apple to allow for it, I'm blown away. and it really worked. So the soundtrack, the action, all of it, it's just such a perfectly crafted, stylistic film. Easily, one of the best of the year, and one of the best in a decent amount of time, overall, along with the rest of these movies. So that's F1. Again, one of the critiques I heard about it was from people that I respect, but they were saying look, I'm an F1 fan, and this movie was not made for F1 fans. I'm sure that's an incredibly fair critique, and I mean that. That's got to be a fair critique. And if I was a hardcore F1 fan, I might be pissed off too. But I'm not watching this giving a shit about F1. I'm watching it just enjoying everything put on display. Just like I don't care about NASCAR at all. But Days of Thunder, I'll watch that all day. Even in fact, Ellen and I watched that recently, and she had a great time watching it. She's not a NASCAR fan, so sometimes these films they work despite their subject matter, and this is one of those cases. So, okay, let's move on. The next one, this one, there's going to be an interesting contrast here. Actually, I'm going to call an audible here. I'm going to go into, since we were just talking about Kaczynski, let's talk about Tron Ares. Let's get into this. This is another movie, just like F1, where it very much feels like one long music video. That's not a bad thing, and in fact, music videos used to be very long. Remember half the shit Michael Jackson made? Or how about the 56-minute presentation, of Rhythm Nation by his sister Janet Jackson, one of the greatest artists in history. I mean, her brother and her, but yeah, there was an entire movie made for that album. So this is again, an ancient tradition, right? And of course, Tron Ares ended up having, 9 Inch Nails, right, return I mean, Atticus Ross and Trent Reznor, they do lots of soundtracks these days. Like another movie made by Apple that was actually very good, I thought, was The Gorge. I mean, not like super great, but better than a lot of movies that have come out over the past, 10 years. I did enjoy The Gorge quite a bit. I actually had it as like an honorable mention on here. But Atticus and Trent, they decided like, no, let's go all the way. We're probably not going to one up Daft Punk. I don't know that they said that, but they didn't. I mean, it's great. Let me talk about it. But they're like, yeah, let's come back as Nine Inch Nails. Like, let's have that kind of, branding behind it. And it was their idea. Like, it wasn't like Disney said, you need to come in. If you want to do this, you need to come in as Nine Inch Nails. No, actually, Trent and Atticus were like, yeah, no, we love Tron and we want to do everything we can for this. And we want it to be, we're going to come in using the name Nine Inch Nails, which is awesome. The soundtrack for this movie, just like with Tron Legacy, incredible. Absolutely incredible. I've listened to it over and over and over again. There's even a recent double disc re-release of it. Recent is in the past couple weeks, and we're in March of 2026 here. Where there's a bunch of remixes and everything. Really, really, really cool. And they even did some of it. A good chunk of the remixes were done with Arca. She's very impressive. It's great stuff. But just what's in the movie is amazing music. And the visuals are, it's Tron. There is a style you kind of have to hit. And they definitely stuck very much with Tron Legacy stylings, which I applaud. I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I think that's great. The storyline, we're not picking up really. There's allusions to Tron Legacy, with Korra, what happened to her. And it seems like, basically Ares is going to try and find her, and all this stuff, whatever. Okay. But it's fine. It doesn't follow up. It's not like the original planned third movie that Joseph Kosinski was also going to do. But it does the job. And again, as a style film, it's amazing. And I believe me, I was the first person to be like, oh, fucking Jared Leto's in this. And he's like the lead person. This is going to, because I can't stand that guy. I'm with you, internet. I cannot stand this dude. But he was actually fine because he wasn't being Jared Leto. He actually acted like a program, and he, and they constantly had a little bit of reverb on his voice and everything. And so he delivered on that. I can't believe I'm saying that, but Jared Leto did a fine job in this movie. And overall it worked. I would have liked to have seen, it's not without flaws. I think all the actors were fine. He had Gillian Anderson in it too, for fuck's sake. I would have very much liked if there was a larger incursion force, basically, coming in from, because basically what the movie does is it turns Tron upside down in the sense that instead of, humans going into the digital world, programs are coming in to the quote unquote real world. And it's a very natural evolution of the story, in my opinion. It's a great story to tell. The problem is, I think it could have been on a much bigger scale. I would have loved to have seen, an ass ton of recognizers, I don't know, flying through London, wherever, and really going all out on that. That would have been pretty cool. But it's smaller scale, but that's okay. Again, it worked. It was cool. In fact, it has, in my opinion, there was a really great moment where you got to go back to the 80s grid, from the original Tron. That was great. But one of the things I really enjoyed about it is there's the point when humans, the protagonists, they're on 3 computers trying to, save the day. Okay. While Ares is out there, battling, programs from Dillinger Systems. And they're saving the day using a Mac. Okay. And then the other person is using a ThinkPad. And the other person is using a razor blade. I don't know whether it was a 15 or an 18 or what, I don't know. But I was like, wouldn't that be something? If, in my headcanon, I am imagining this as, okay, the razor 100% is running Windows. The Mac is obviously running Mac OS. And the ThinkPad, for fellow Linux heavies, like we use ThinkPads, right? So to think that they were combating Dillinger systems using all three major operating systems. I mean, sure, maybe it was BSD, or we could have had another computer running BSD or something, but to have like Linux, Windows, and Mac OS working together, that's got to be some kind of record in a movie. That was so great. I mean, it's a small scene, but I loved the hell out of it. Very funny movie. I know on the Blu-ray, I watched like some of the deleted scenes. Not a lot of them really add anything, though. They did have a deleted scene where they brought in Steve Linsberger, who he was also in Tron Legacy, but of course is the guy that created the original Tron, the movie. It would have been great to like have allowed his scene to stay in. That's the only thing I wish they would have kept in. Of course, a lot of people are like, "Oh, I want to go see a Tron movie, but there's no Tron in it. Like, where's Tron?" It's fine. It's absolutely fine. Just like a Star Wars movie doesn't have to have Luke Skywalker. Sure, it's better when it does, but it doesn't have to, So, and believe me, I would have loved to have seen Tron. I mean, I'm such a Bruce Boxleitner fan in general, be in the film, but I was okay with the fact that he wasn't. Like, that really doesn't take anything away from it. If anything, it just like creates a background question in your mind. Like, what's Tron up to right now? Because what happened at the end of Tron Legacy when his lights turn blue when he's in the, Sea of Simulation? And yeah. So anyway, this movie was just so cool. I think it worked on all the levels that it needed to work. And they could have really fucked this up. In fact, I was going in very, very cautiously optimistic, but Disney did not fuck this one up. I mean, the only thing I feel bad about is like, I keep trying to remember the director's name. I know it's Joachim something. Let me look this up. Yeah. Okay. Joachim Ronning, like his direction, like I didn't feel like there was necessarily like any kind of specific style. In fact, what else has he made? I even watched like he made a Pirates of the Caribbean. Okay. He made a Maleficent movie. Yeah. Those are all right. That seems to be kind of his big deal. So, I mean, that's okay. That's not that odd. I mean, Disney took a chance with Tron Legacy by putting Kaczynski in. I mean, I didn't walk away like blown away by, oh man, this director, like you can just feel his fingerprints on this, like I would with Kaczynski. But again, everybody delivered what they needed to deliver, and it really worked. And it ended up being a film that I can watch over and over again. A big part of that, of course, is the Nine Inch Nails soundtrack, just like with Tron Legacy. A big part of that is the Daft Punk soundtrack. But that's okay. It's that kind of film. Like, it's more, in many ways, it's more of a music video than it is a movie. And there's nothing fucking wrong with that. The music video is a fine format. At least it used to be, not the crap that mostly gets made today. But back in the day, like they were mini movies. That's how they were thought of, So anyway, it worked. Loved Tron Ares. Definitely worth anybody's time, in my opinion. Better when you have more history, but I think it's one you can even watch without any of it. And again, just enjoy the visuals. Definitely something I would watch on psilocybin as well. Anyway. So, all right, let's shake it up. Let's go to another major franchise. Again, like I said, 2025, a lot of franchises. Now, I do got to say quick though, like, unfortunately, as I understand it, Tron Ares did not do a lot of money when it was in theaters. But once it came to streaming, I think this is hilarious. Once it came to streaming, it ended up being the number one film on Disney Plus, like instantly, and held that for weeks. Of course, what did it top on Disney Plus? What was the number 2 film, or what was previously the number 1 film and then got knocked down to number 2? Avatar: Way of Water. But oh yeah. Nobody watches nobody watches the Avatar movies, apparently. Fuck nuts. And Tron sucks, supposedly. All right. Whatever you say, they're just topping the charts. And I mean, look, yeah, we can make fun of streaming, and I would. And we can make fun of Disney, and I do. Okay. At the same time, I know why Way of Water was probably up there because people were going to see 3. but like of all the movies you can watch on Disney Plus, out of all of Disney's catalog, and that includes Star Wars movies, and these are your movies taking your top spots, I'd be paying attention. Just saying. And also, as usual, the internet is wrong. Okay. Except for about Jared Leto. You're totally right about that. But look, he did great in Tron Ares. Okay. Let's move on to another franchise. One that I have also been a fan of for a huge chunk of my life. And that being Jurassic Park. So, though some may have forgotten, we did also get another Jurassic Park movie, or Jurassic World movie in particular, in 2025. Now, I want to be clear here. I would have been absolutely fine with, the whole Jurassic World movie, or the whole Jurassic Park franchise basically ending with the previous film. Okay, with Extinction. Like that would have been fine with me. It was especially the longer version that, you can watch on disc. I mean, Rob, Ellen, and I, we all saw it in theaters. Sorry, that was Dominion, not Extinction. Jurassic Park Dominion, okay. Or Jurassic World Dominion. Oh, jeez. Anyway, like that, it was basically Jurassic World was a second trilogy, and it had a capstone, right? It had a final film, and I thought that delivered, and I really, really enjoyed that movie. Like I said, especially the longer version on disc. So we didn't need another Jurassic World / Jurassic Park movie. But we did end up getting Rebirth, Jurassic World Rebirth. And of course it starred Scarlett Johansson. And it did money. Like, I think it's also, I'd have to look it up. In fact, maybe I'll pull it up here. I think it did $1 billion box office. What was the box office? Oh, almost $1 billion. Worldwide total of $869 million. So it almost did $1 billion. But again, apparently this movie was terrible. No, like, here's the thing with Jurassic Park movies, okay? I mean, to me, there's only like one Jurassic Park movie that I can't just constantly rewatch, and that's The Lost World. Like, the second one, it's not bad. It's just like, it's just not great. And it doesn't fit into a certain category of film that lends itself to being rewatched, right? Like, we were just talking about the music video style of film. Okay. Those are movies you can often watch over and over and over again. Why? Because music videos by design are to be watched over and over and over again and listened to, right? Over and over and over again. Okay. I've always said this, like, I mean, yes, the first Jurassic Park, of course, is the greatest. After that, I'd probably put 3, Jurassic Park 3, though really the first Jurassic World I thought was incredible. And I mean, I love the second one as well. But Jurassic Park 3 is great because it's just a dinosaur movie. It's a movie with a ton of dinosaurs and action, and dinosaurs being the center of that action. There's not a bunch of character arc, there's not like any of that stuff, and there doesn't need to be. That's okay. And it works really, really well. Like, it works so well. And to some degree, I actually put Jurassic World Rebirth in that Jurassic Park 3 category. Not that it achieved it as well as Jurassic Park 3 did, which of course, I mean, Scarlett Johansson is a great actress. And there's other great actors in the movie, but like Jurassic Park 3's cast, when you actually go back and look at it, you'll probably be shocked because you forgot. I mean, you got William H. Macy, Sam Neill. I mean, it's a kick-ass cast. Like, it's a really great cast. So it works a lot better in that regard, because you kind of inherently care about the humans, even if there's not a lot of, again, deep characterization. Like, that doesn't really matter. You're there for the dinosaurs anyway. But it's great when you can give a little bit of a shit about what's going to happen to the, and it was so awesome to have Alan Grant back, just as it was in Jurassic World Dominion. But anyway, this was kind of meant to be a fresh start. I mean, if you're doing almost $1 billion, we're probably going to get a sequel to this. And I'm fine with that. You know, again, it's not, in fact, I very much compare it to Tron Ares, where, like, okay, all the central characters we kind of know and love aren't exactly there. You know, like maybe the T-Rex isn't the big deal, or, you know, because like the T-Rex obviously had great moments in the first Jurassic World movie, and obviously Jurassic Park itself. But, you know, and the Velociraptors aren't the big deal or whatever. I mean, like, I get it. Okay. But that's okay. Like, the Spinosaurus was incredibly threatening. They did really, really well with that. It's just a time with more dinosaurs in a world where dinosaurs are normal, but it's like the modern world. Like, that's just a cool setup. And I like, really, I think it works. You know, is it one of the greatest movies ever made? No. Was it a good time in the theater? In my opinion, absolutely yes. So I thought this movie, you know, really delivered. You know, in fact, it's another one where it could have been far, far worse. And I'm always expecting the worst with these movies. But by no means, the movie was awesome. Colin Trevorrow has, and this is going to lead into our next, you know, our next great film of 2025. Colin Trevorrow has like really made Jurassic Park like his pet franchise. And this is something that I think is so important to do, because you need to, I mean, we saw what happened when basically Star Wars under Disney had no creative control. Like, there was no like one creator. There was no George Lucas. There was no J. Michael Straczynski, no Roddenberry, you know, or Berman or whatever, you know, to say like, okay, no, this is how we make this kind of, this is how we tell this story. Here's the consistency. Here's the theme here, you know, all this stuff. That's something that's sorely lacking in Hollywood these days. Trevorrow is one of the people that was able to, certainly over the previous Jurassic World movies, you know, was really able to make it into his own. And, you know, in many ways, I think that's really still happening, you know, with Rebirth, is that you still get that, you get that creative consistency. Now, this did get turned over, you know, Trevorrow didn't do Rebirth. This did get turned over to Gareth Edwards, who most people will probably know best for, you know, making Rogue One, speaking of Star Wars movies. Or, well, I think there's a lot of people who debate how much he really made Rogue One. But we don't have to, you know, cover that ground here. You know, I feel like, I mean, and this is a whole separate huge conversation, but in many ways, I feel like Jurassic Park is also the anti-Star Wars. Like, this is where you go to take on Star Wars, you know, and in some ways, like, especially if Gareth Edwards also gets to make more movies, you know, that competition may still exist. And I bring this up, I'm not going to give a bunch of context on this because we need to move on to other movies here. I might even have to shorten my list. I'll do some honorable mentions at the end. But you really have, where, you know, Trevorrow got kicked out of making, you know, episode 9 of Star Wars, and they gave it back to JJ. You know, we all saw what Jar Jar Abrams did with it. And I mean, so, but Colin Trevorrow, you know, got to stick the landing with Jurassic World overall. Now, certainly Gareth Edwards, I don't think did as great a job with, you know, with Jurassic World Rebirth as he did with Rogue One. And again, it does make you wonder, how much was he behind Rogue One being as great as it was? I don't know. I'm not, it amazes me how much Hollywood is very much a black box. And what I mean in that is not Cult of the Black Cube, though I'm sure plenty of them do worship Saturnus. But what I mean by that is, it's amazing how little information we can get out of that fucking industry. Like, they're more secretive than the CIA. I mean, it's impressive, scary, and impressive. So who knows, you know, what the reality, you know, is there. But regardless, I think Gareth Edwards did fine here. And you know, if they want to continue making Jurassic World, Jurassic Park movies, like, by all means, you know, I just want to see some gigantic dinosaurs, you know, kicking ass. And, you know, it's the same reason I watched the Monsterverse. Like, yeah, oh yeah, I check my logic at the door, and that's okay. Like, that's fine. I just want to see King Kong and Godzilla do their business. Anyway, So, but to my point about like having people kind of control a franchise narrative and have like real control of a franchise is such a key thing. And the proof in that actually speaks to what I consider to be the best movie of 2025. And I am telling you, I cannot fucking believe that I am saying this. But Predator Badlands. Look, Avatar Fire, great movie. F1, great movie. Like there's great shit that I'm going to watch over and over again here, okay? I have already watched Predator Badlands. I mean, I've got to be up 5-6 times. That's saying something today when there's so much to watch. Yeah, sure. You know, when I was a kid, I'd watch, whatever, Return of the Jedi, 100 times, 200 times. In fact, I've lost count of how many times I've ever watched any Star Wars film. So like to get me to watch something over and over and over again today, you've got to be something really special. Man, Predator Badlands is that something special. Wow. Like if you told me 20 years ago, if you said, Stallion, the franchise that is going to save science fiction in, the in the early goings of the 21st century is going to be the Predator franchise, I absolutely would not have believed you. And it's not because I don't like Predator. I love these movies. I've read the comics. I still read the comics. Like I am all over it. Play the video games. All of it. Predator 2. I love Predator 2. Love that fucking movie. And I gave a glowing review even to The Predator. What was that? 2017, 2018. And I know not everybody liked that movie. Like, and certainly there's plenty to talk about within that, but like there is no, other than AVP movies, there's no real bad Predator film. Okay. And the first one is obviously an absolute classic, like total cultural touchstone. But this movie is incredible. Like, this movie's on a whole other fucking level. And I mean, obviously Prey, I've watched Prey, that, and these are all made by the same guy. There's actually, believe it or not, there were 2 Predator movies that came out in 2025 and they were both amazing. Badlands being, like the far and away winner here, but Predator Killer of Killers, which was an animated film, only available on Disney Plus, unfortunately. It's a streaming film. I hope we get a physical release at some point. I cannot imagine that they wouldn't, especially since we even got a physical release of Prey, which I'm still so thankful for that, because you can actually, watch it in the, traditional indigenous tongue, which I thought was beautiful to watch it that way. It's almost tear jerking. But Predator Badlands, anyway, Killer of Killers, hopefully we'll get that. That movie was awesome, especially if you watch the extended version that they released after, and you get the extra scenes at the end, with Dutch and everybody. That was, and even the Predator 2 nod and everything. That was so great. So great. But Predator Badlands, I mean, there's so many things I want to say about it, because this movie had so much bad press going into it, where you had the whole manosphere and whatever saying they're making the Predator an incel and all this stuff. And it's like, and when you finally get to see the movie and you see the evolution of Deck of the Yautja, right? You get it. Like, they're not exactly wrong, but what you discover is, yes, that is the point, is that he is the runt. It's very much, it's the ugly duckling in space in the most extreme lethal ways. And that's what makes it so awesome. Really, and it's actually, interestingly, we were talking about Avatar, how it kind of has this anti-technology or anti-civilization sort of vibe to it. In a small way, Predator Badlands plays with that as well, where you basically find the natural, there's a point where, Deck doesn't have any of the, really advanced Predator technology. And so he has to use the world around him. And he basically gets a pet animal that works, the mounted shoulder gun and everything. I mean, all this stuff is so cool. And What really impressed me with this movie, there's not a human in the film. No humans. Yeah, there's Weyland Yutani robots or androids that look like them, but no humans. Incredible. Awesome. Just awesome. I mean, everybody's acting is on point, but this is the thing, is that since the movie Prey, you've had the same director-writer. You had Dan Trachtenberg, okay, who has been, like, his sole mission, it seems, is let's do the Predator franchise. And somehow Disney has let him do it with smaller budgets, to be sure, but they've let him do it, and he's just running with it, man. Like this is what I'm saying. When you have one person allowed to actually play a long game and have complete control over a franchise, you can tell these amazing stories. And the beauty is that Trachtenberg clearly knows his source material. Like, he's clearly read the comics, because I'm pretty sure this is the first time that the Predators are ever correctly addressed as the Yautja. Now, the term Yautja comes from the Dark Horse comics from the 90s of Predator. And I mean, like, the language is there, everything. Like, English isn't even spoken that much in this movie. Awesome. There's so much going for this, but Deck's his whole evolution, the whole story, everything, like, and there's times where, like, again, a lot of expectations subverted. I mean, like, there's just so many surprises. It is such a funny movie. Everything about it, incredible. All the actors, everybody's delivering, and the special effects, like, and this is hard because it's very much a creature feature, like, and that's an old Hollywood term, meaning that there's, like, a ton of, organisms, creatures that are not something that exists on Earth. Okay, so it's a lot of animals, but they're alien animals. And so that's part of what would make up what Hollywood used to call a creature feature. And this is absolutely one of those. And that can go wrong. Like, there's points where you can see, like, oh yeah, he's clearly writing something on green screen or whatever. No, this worked like, Dan Trachtenberg, maybe the only guy. I'd have to see what he could do outside of Predator. He's doing brilliant inside of Predator. I can't imagine anyone doing better. But he's the only guy that I would, like, put at that Joseph Kosinski level of, like, kind of younger bucks, that just, like, those great working directors. He's absolutely in that class. But part of the reason he's in that is because he has this great franchise that fans, like hardcore sweaties of the franchise, know there's a lot of deep myth and lore within. And he knows it. And so he gets to play with it, even though the bulk of the populace has no idea. So a lot of this stuff is new for them, but for the hardcore fans, they're watching it and they're just like, yes, do that. Yeah. Show that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that exactly. And you get that classic excitement of seeing something that existed in another medium come to life on screen. And again, I've watched this movie so many times, ever since it came out. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Far and away the best movie of 2025. I mean, Avatar Fire and Ash gives it a very good run for its money. But this movie had no right to be this good. Like, it felt like a smaller movie, right? And it's got a good short length to it. This and Tron Ares, I want to credit both of them for being sub 2 hours, and not overstaying their welcome. But because of that, they actually have I like long films, don't confuse me, but they get to be more impactful in their brevity. Man, this movie just worked. It just worked. And Killer of Killers, go enjoy that too. Like, by all means, go torrent that shit or whatever, until the disc comes out. Like, just amazing. And like, this is the best franchise going right now. Where other franchises are absolutely failing. I mean, you look at, like, Starfleet Academy, what's happening there with Star Trek, like, pure shit. Section 31, pure shit. I mean, just garbage, that I could eat 20 pizzas and I couldn't shit out crap like that. It's so bad. Half of what Star Wars is doing these days. It's so bad. To tell me that Predator and Alien's doing some cool things too. You know, they're kind of in the same universe along with Blade Runner. But to tell me that like Predator is the savior of science fiction in 2025, in the 2020s, like I could have never believed you. But it is. Best stuff on, I mean, it's just best stuff on the screen right now. Unreal. Unreal how good that is. So there's your movie of 2025. Now, some quick honorable mentions. These were all very good films. And by the way, that's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there's 7 great movies. Just on its own for 2025. But there's others. Frankenstein on Netflix. That is getting a physical release, by the way. That was very, very good. Very good. I could spend a ton of time talking about that, but whatever. House of Dynamite with Rebecca Ferguson. Excellent movie. Yep, political, but whatever. It was very, very gripping. Excellent thriller. The John Wick movie, Ballerina, that was very good. Working Man with Jason Statham. That guy is just so reliable. That's the only way I can really describe him. He is so reliable with what he does. The Beekeeper, man, if you never saw that, go check that out. The cat movie, animated cat movie Flow, phenomenal. I already mentioned The Gorge. I mean, like I said, I'm not even getting into the horror films. Like, we had a lot of stuff for the 28 days / 28 years universe that I know was very good. I'm not even getting into that, but I mean, it was just, a lot of this is for our franchise films, but man, some of them are like top of their game, best in the series. Some, not all, but even if they're not, like they're still great, So I gave you the best movie of the year, and I want to wrap this baby up. Because what have I been going on here for? 2 hours? 3 hours? The worst movie of the year. Superman by James Gunn. Now, this is the funny thing. Like I said before, 20 years ago, if you told me that the greatest movies being made would be the Predator franchise, again, I would have told you, no way. Like that's just impossible. The other thing you would have told, if you told me that Superman was the worst thing going in superhero movies, if you told me that in 2020, or 20 years ago, if you told me that, hell, if you told me that in 2020, I wouldn't have believed you, because we still had, we still had Henry Cavill, we still had a real Superman. But if you told me, 20 years ago that Superman was going to be like, again, that big steaming pile of shit, I wouldn't have believed you. I would have also said, impossible. There's no way. You can't fuck up Superman that hard. But boy, James Gunn could. Horrible movie. Not just a horrible movie. Everything he's doing with the DC universe. Peacemaker's good, but everything that he's doing with the new DC universe is a fucking joke. And not like a Joker kind of joke, but it's really bad. Again, Peacemaker, I definitely, like John Cena is doing John Cena. Okay. I'm not going to complain there. But also that was technically originally part of the Snyderverse. But yeah, it's so bad. And like that new Supergirl movie, no interest whatsoever. Like I didn't give Superman any money. I'm not going to give that any money. Like I'm not putting any money down on, on what James Gunn is doing with DC. It's just not working. And it's not that James Gunn is like, it's not like he's not creative or like he's a bad director or writer or anything like that. Oh no. Guardians of the Galaxy, that whole trilogy is amazing. Some of the best movies, made. Phenomenal. But Superman? But what he's doing with DC? Like, DC doesn't work that way. Zack Snyder understood what DC was. Marvel works that way. Marvel is funny. Marvel is ironic. Marvel's all this, like Marvel does all that stuff. But DC, you're playing with gods. Even Batman. You're playing with gods. And you treat them as such. You do anything less, and you're just pissing on them. You're pissing on everything that makes them great. So, like James Gunn, he's just the wrong guy. He's just flat out the wrong guy to do this. Seriously, I wish The Rock, I really do. I wish The Rock had taken over DC. He tried. I'm shocked that it failed, because Black Adam, and this is probably going to invalidate everyone's opinion of my opinions of films of 2025 if I haven't invalidated myself already. But I thought Black Adam was a great movie. Really, really good. It's no Predator Badlands, but it was good. And The Rock understood the mission. James Gunn is not the right person. This is not the person you send out on this Black Op. Like, you just don't. You can't treat Superman that way. And you don't, yes, there's the Justice League, but overall, you don't make Superman, especially on his first fucking outing in your new universe, you don't make him, part of a team act. He's Superman. He doesn't need anybody else. No, really. You tell his story. Don't you bring in a bunch of other people? Yeah, it's nice he had Crypto. Great. Okay. He had Crypto in the Snyderverse as well. No, really. In fact, with... well, anyway, that was an animated movie, but it is technically part of the larger DCU canon, but, Snyderverse canon, but whatever. I'm not gonna get lost on that. Okay. But this is my point. Like Superman, this is not how you do Superman. And, I know that, like, Zack Snyder made some changes with Superman that a lot of people were not happy with, like in particular that he made Superman kill somebody. That's a little more of easier pill to swallow. I get it. Okay. As somebody who's read Superman his entire life, I totally understand that criticism, but it was done. First off, it was executed very well. No pun intended. Second off, overall, you clearly understood that Zack Snyder understood the character. This is a God on earth. Okay. And again, James Gunn just doesn't get it. This is just part of the DC attitude, and it's not working. So I'm just as happy that Marvel seems to be flailing, even though I know we're supposed to be getting a new Avengers movie, and that is all just a very strange thing. And I didn't even talk about Fantastic Four, which I never will. The movie, you want me to talk about the comic book? I'll give you a whole history lesson if you want. You'd be hard pressed to find somebody who knows much more about Reed Richards and Sue Storm than me. But whatever, not going to go there with all of those. So regardless of those massive stinkers, 2025 was an amazing year. And again, full of movies that I will watch over and over again. And I have not been able to say that at that scale for a very long time, where I'm like, oh yeah, there's movies from this year that I am going to watch over and over again for the rest of my life. But there absolutely are. There absolutely were in 2025, particularly Avatar, Fire and Ash. Tron Ares, the Predator movies I'm going to watch. Badlands, hell, just talking about it, I want to go watch it again right now. I always do a little marathon of the Mission Impossible movies every couple of years. F1, that's another one where, like, even if I'm not watching the movie over and over again, I guarantee I'm listening to the soundtrack over and over again. It's that good. So, again, these are film. Jurassic World, yeah, okay, that one I might not watch over and over again, but then I don't watch a lot of the Jurassic films over and over again. As much, and like, look, no shade. Right here, I have an Indoraptor. Look, if you're watching on YouTube or Spotify, here we go, right in the studio, right next to me. I have my Amazon exclusive Indoraptor that I got way back when Fallen Kingdom came out. Love that. This thing just eating the rich. Hell yes. Take that one, Elon. Excuse me. That was a bad one. So Okay. Anyway, that's it for movies for 2025 and hopefully a very successful test. In fact, you might not have even noticed. Maybe you didn't notice when the background changed here on YouTube, but I actually went through multiple computers just because I realized I was going to be talking so long. Oh, we can do multiple tests in one shot in one episode. So we'll see how it goes. If there were any audio errors, I apologize again as we continue to work through all of this. And, not waste anybody's time and get out, again, great conversations. And I want to hear from you. Get your conversation in with me. Okay. Get in the YouTube comments, get in the emails at questions@orx.email, get in, on the Spotify comments, or hell, I'm even on Rumble. I know others have commented on Rumble. Thank you so much. Every episode is posted on Rumble. So I'm all over the place. Okay. Links in the show notes if you want to check it all out. But anyway, thank you, everybody. And I'll wrap this one up here, and I will see all of you on the other side.